My sister mocked me. Where's your husband and kids? Oh, right, you don't. My parents laughed. I didn't expect to walk into my parents' living room and become the punchline of the night. But that's exactly what happened. The moment I stepped inside, still holding the small box of sweets I'd brought, my sister's eyes locked onto me with that familiar smirk, the one she always wore right before she said something designed to hurt. She didn't even wait for me to take off my shoes. "Where's your husband and kids?" she asked loudly. Then, after a dramatic pause, she clapped her hands together. "Oh right, you don't have any." My parents burst into laughter. Not the surprised kind. Not the confused kind. But the kind that said they had been waiting for this moment. Like they expected me to walk in alone. Like they were ready to turn it into a performance. My father shook his head with exaggerated disappointment. "Still single? At your age?" My mother added. "You should be grateful you don't have kids at least. They'd suffer." My sister pretended to gasp. Maybe she's waiting for a miracle from the sky. More laughter. Louder this time. Each word hit harder than it should have, because this wasn't new. This wasn't a one-time joke. This wasn't harmless teasing. This was the story of my life. Being the unmarried daughter automatically made me the problem, the failure, the embarrassment, the one who didn't meet the family standard. And the worst part? They didn't even try to hide their satisfaction when they hurt me. My mother waved her hand at me dismissively. "Go put your things down. Maybe help your sister in the kitchen. Married women are busy, you know." My sister grinned like she'd won something. I set the sweets on the table with shaking hands. Not because I was weak, but because I was fighting the urge to scream. Inside, I was sinking. Outside, I was silent. Every time I visited my parents' home, it felt less like family and more like a battlefield where I stood unarmed. I forced a smile and walked past them, pretending their words didn't sting, pretending I had grown immune, pretending the laughter didn't echo inside me long after it stopped. But the truth was simple. I wasn't immune. I was exhausted. Because for years, I had told myself, "They're family. They'll change. They don't mean it. They're just stressed. They're joking." But tonight, something inside me cracked, quietly, painfully. The moment I reached the hallway, I heard them again. My mother whispered loudly, "She's wasting her life." My sister replied, "She had chances. She just wasn't good enough." My father sighed, "Some people aren't meant for marriage. She should accept that." I stopped walking, not because I wanted to listen, but because my legs refused to move. It felt like my heart had been replaced with a stone. Heavy, cold, unmoving. For a moment, I wanted to run out of the house and never look back, but leaving would prove them right. Leaving would make me the weak one again. Leaving would give them another story to mock. So I stood there, fixed in place, breathing deeply as if trying to stay alive underwater. My sister suddenly appeared behind me. She leaned in close and whispered into my ear. "Seriously though, doesn't it get lonely? Being the only one no one picked." I turned slowly. Her face held that same cruel satisfaction. I whispered back, "Why does my life bother you this much?" She blinked. For a moment, her smile faltered. Then she shrugged dramatically. "Because you make it too easy." I felt something heavy shift inside me again. Not breaking this time, but waking up. I walked to the kitchen, ignoring her. But even there, I wasn't free. My mother followed, shaking her head. "You know, if you fixed your attitude, maybe someone would want you." I kept chopping the fruit I had brought. Her voice followed like a shadow. "Men want women who can cook, clean, take care of a home. Not someone who acts like she doesn't need anyone." My father's voice echoed from the living room. "At this point, we'll have to beg someone to take her." Their laughter rose again. Something inside me, something buried deep beneath all the years of silence, began to rise. My chest tightened. My throat burned. My eyes stung. But instead of tears, strength came. A calm, steady, terrifying strength. I didn't respond. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. Not because I agreed with them, but because I was done wasting breath on people who enjoyed hurting me. For the first time in years, I looked at my family and didn't feel love. I felt distance. A cold, clear distance. Suddenly, the front door opened. Voices filled the house. More relatives arriving. And before I could brace myself, my sister walked into the living room and announced loudly, "Everyone, guess what? She came alone." Again. The room erupted in mocking laughter. Someone joked, "At this point, maybe she should marry her job." Another added, "Or adopt a cat." My mother covered her face dramatically. "I'm tired of explaining to people why she's still single." My father chuckled. "Maybe she's waiting for us to choose someone for her." My sister clapped like a child. "Yes, she needs help. Desperate help." The laughter grew louder. The room spun around me. Faces blurred. Voices overlapped. My ears rang. I stood there, surrounded by people who were supposed to care about me, yet feeling more alone than ever. And in that suffocating moment, I realized something powerful. The loneliness they mocked me for came from them, not from being single, not from being unmarried, from them. And that was the moment something changed. Not slowly, not gently, but sharply, decisively. A quiet voice inside me said, "Enough. Enough of being their joke. Enough of being their disappointment. Enough of pretending this was normal. Enough of pretending this was love." I didn't know how or when or what exactly I would do, but I knew one thing for certain. Tonight, the story would not end the way they expected. Not with me crying. Not with me staying silent. Not with me taking it again. I lifted my head. My heartbeat slowed. My breathing steadied. And for the first time in my life, I was ready to face them. Ready to speak. Ready to end this version of myself forever. And none of them were ready for what was coming. I stood there frozen, my sister's words still echoing in my head. "Where's your husband and kids?" "Oh right, you don't have any." The room tilted for a second, not because what she said was true, but because she said it with such vicious joy. And then my parents laughed. Not an awkward laugh. Not a confused laugh. A real, entertained, satisfied laugh. My mother turned to the guests nearby and said loudly, "Don't mind her. She's just different. Always has been. Different." Like I was some flaw in the family picture they were trying so hard to perfect tonight. My father even added, "If only she tried as hard in life as she tries to prove she's independent." Guests chuckled, softly, politely, but enough to burn me alive on the inside. I forced myself to breathe. I forced myself to stay still. But something inside me cracked, not the weak kind of break, the kind that reshapes you. My sister walked closer, glass of champagne in hand, fake sweetness dripping from her voice. "You know, maybe if you weren't so focused on having a career, someone would have wanted you." "Maybe," I said, voice steady, "or maybe I just didn't want to end up with the kind of men who fall for people like you." Her smile died instantly. She tried to respond, but before she could, my mother stepped between us. "Behave. Don't ruin your sister's day. She's finally getting the life you couldn't." That was it. Not the insult. Not the comparison. Not the humiliation. It was the word finally, as if everyone had been waiting for her to succeed while expecting me to fail. My mother grabbed my arm and pulled me aside, her nails digging into my skin. She whispered sharply, "Control yourself. Don't embarrass us. Your presence is already complicated." Complicated. I almost laughed. She didn't invite me out of love, she invited me because it would look bad if the unmarried daughter was missing. I was a prop. A decoration. A checkmark on a family list. I looked at her directly. "For years, I tried to earn a place in this family," I said quietly. "Turns out I never had one." My mother looked shocked, not hurt, not regretful, shocked that I dared to speak. Before she could answer, a familiar voice called from behind us. A deep, calm, confident voice. "Aren't wedding days supposed to be about love, not humiliation?" Everyone turned. A man had walked in, tall, sharply dressed, carrying an aura that made half the guests straighten their posture. His presence changed the atmosphere instantly, like a cold wind slicing through a suffocating room. My sister's face strained. My father blinked rapidly, confused. My mother stiffened. I didn't move. Because I recognized that voice instantly. Ethan Hill. The man who once silently rescued me from the greatest mistake of my life. The man I told no one about. The man who saw me when my own family didn't. He walked toward me, not toward the bride, not toward the groom, not toward the guests. Toward me. My parents watched stunned, as Ethan stopped next to me. He glanced at my sister and said, "Mocking someone for walking alone says more about your emptiness than hers." Gasps. Actual gasps from guests who pretended not to be listening. My sister turned red. "Who even are you to say anything?" He raised a brow. "A man who was invited by the venue owner. The same man your fiancé begged last week to invest in his company." Silence. Thick and heavy. My parents looked panicked. My sister looked like she might faint. Ethan looked at me, voice softer. "Hi." A single word, but enough to ground me. "Hi," I said back. My mother rushed forward instantly, her voice fake sweet. "Oh, you two know each other? That's unexpected." "Yes," Ethan replied calmly. "I know her well. Well enough to say she deserves a lot more respect than she's getting here." More whispers. More shocked faces. My father tried to regain control. "Well, weddings can be emotional. Misunderstandings happen." Ethan cut him off. "No misunderstanding. I heard everything." He stepped slightly in front of me, not to overshadow me, but as if shielding me from the world that had bruised me too often. My sister hissed, "You're ruining my wedding." Ethan looked at her with cold amusement. "Your words ruined it long before I walked in." She opened her mouth to argue, but her fiancé, pale and sweating, hurried over and grabbed her arm. "Don't start a fight with him," he whispered loudly enough for people to hear. "You know what's at stake." That sentence alone made half the guests turn away awkwardly. My family stood frozen, their insults exposed, their cruelty on display, their perfect image crumbling. I should have enjoyed it. I should have felt victorious. But I felt sad. Not for myself, for the fact that this was who my family truly was. Ethan leaned closer and whispered, "You don't have to endure this. Not tonight." And for the first time in years, I felt something like relief. I nodded. But before we left, I turned back to my family, finally ready to speak without fear. "You laugh at me for being alone," I said softly. "But none of you realized. Being alone is still better than being with people who tear you down." My mother's eyes widened. My father swallowed hard. My sister looked furious. I took a final breath. "And one day, you'll regret the way you treated me tonight." Ethan offered me his hand. I took it, and together, we walked out of the hall, leaving behind the people who never expected me to rise, and never imagined someone would walk in and freeze them all. The cold night air hit my skin as soon as we stepped outside the wedding hall. The muffled music, the laughter, the fake celebration behind those walls, it all felt like a different world, a world I had finally escaped. Ethan didn't let go of my hand until we reached the quiet courtyard. He didn't ask questions. He didn't push. He just stood beside me, steady and calm, as if giving me space to breathe for the first time in years. "You okay?" he asked softly. I exhaled a breath I didn't know I had been holding. "I should be," I whispered. "But somehow, I'm not." He nodded. "That's because you spent your whole life holding in things that were never your fault." My throat tightened. No one had ever said something that simple, and that true. We walked toward the parking lot, away from the buzzing hall, away from the poisonous laughter, away from the people who called themselves my family. But halfway through the silence, I stopped. Because something heavy, something old, was still sitting on my chest. "I want to finish this," I said quietly. Ethan turned. "Finish what?" "I don't want to leave like a victim," I said. "They embarrassed me in front of everyone. They enjoyed it. They laughed at me like I was a joke." I swallowed hard. "They need to know I'm done being the quiet, obedient daughter who takes their cruelty." His eyes softened. "Then let's finish it." He didn't question me. He didn't tell me to calm down. He didn't try to protect my image. He simply walked with me back inside. The return. The entire hall turned silent when we walked back in. People literally stopped dancing. Servers froze mid-step. Even the music seemed quieter, as if the speakers themselves were afraid of what was coming next. My mother's face twisted into panic. My sister looked horrified. My father clenched his jaw, like he could still salvage the night. But it was too late. I stepped forward. Ethan stayed behind me, close, but not overshadowing. I faced the guests. Not just my family, everyone. Some of you heard what was said to me earlier, I began. Some of you pretended not to. But tonight, something became very clear. The hall was dead silent. My sister mocked me for not being married. My parents laughed. And to them, it was entertainment. A ripple of embarrassment spread across the room. My mother whispered, "Stop this right now." I kept speaking. But what they didn't realize is that I am not ashamed of my life. I don't need a husband or children to prove my worth. I don't need a ring to validate my existence. My sister scoffed, "Oh, please." I turned to her. "You mocked me because you're terrified," I said. Terrified that deep down, you know marriage isn't your achievement. It's your hiding place. A place to feel superior. A place to mask your insecurities. Her mouth fell open. A few guests actually nodded. I turned back to the crowd. My whole life, my family made me feel like I was less valuable, less lovable, less worthy. But tonight, I realized something. I lifted my chin. I'm not the one who's less. I'm the one who grew. A murmur spread across the hall. My father stepped forward, voice sharp. "You're humiliating us." I laughed softly, almost pitying. "No. You did that to yourselves the moment you thought it was acceptable to humiliate your own daughter." My mother's face turned red. She grabbed my arm again, but this time, I pulled away. "I'm done," I said. "I'm done chasing your approval. I'm done trying to earn love that you only give when it's convenient." I looked straight at her, the woman who raised me, but never truly supported me. "You laughed at me for walking in alone. You mocked me because I chose a different path. But the truth is, I'm proud of the woman I became. And I'm no longer apologizing for it." My sister snapped. "So what now? You want applause? You want sympathy?" "No," I said calmly. "I just want distance." I took a breath, a steady final breath. "And from today onward, I'm choosing myself." Ugh. The final blow. My sister rolled her eyes. "You always make things dramatic. Go ahead, leave then." "I will," I said. "But not before I say one last thing." The hall leaned in. "You laughed at me for walking alone tonight," I said. "But you had no idea that the man you're begging for business approval came looking for me first." My sister froze. Ethan stepped forward now, his voice cool as ice. "And for the record," he said, looking directly at her, "I don't invest in companies led by people who treat their own family like garbage." Her fiancé choked on air. Gasps filled the room. My sister grabbed her fiancé's arm in panic. "What does that mean? Say something." But he stayed silent, eyes wide, terrified of losing Ethan's investment. Ethan continued. "And I'm certainly not partnering with someone who mocked a woman simply because she walked in without a husband." My parents paled. My sister's wedding, her perfect, fairy tale, look-at-me wedding, had just been shattered in front of everyone. And for once, I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. The exit. I turned away from my family, not angrily, not dramatically, but peacefully, as if a weight I carried for years had suddenly dissolved. Ethan offered his hand again. I took it again, but this time, without hesitation. We walked out of the hall together. No whispers behind us. No insults. No laughter. Just silence, the kind that follows truth. Outside, under the soft glow of the streetlights, Ethan looked at me and said, "You did the right thing." I nodded slowly. "I think, for the first time, I finally did." He smiled. "Good. Because you deserve a life filled with people who see your worth, not people who mock it." I felt tears gather, not sadness, not pain relief. For the first time in years, I wasn't lonely. I wasn't unwanted. I wasn't less. I was enough. And as we walked away from the wedding, from the place I was humiliated, mocked, and dismissed, I realized something powerful. I didn't lose a family tonight. I freed myself from one. The end.